Welcome back to the Solid Verbal Live. It is college football's week 3.
Indeed.
My name's Ty Hildenbrandt.
I'm also Ty Hildenbrandt. No.
The man on my left is actually Dan Rubenstein. You know him well. He's SB Nation's own. We are the Solid Verbal. Find us on the Twitters. Our Twitter handle is @SolidVerbal. Look right behind us. Reach out. We'll get to a few of your tweets a little later on in the broadcast. Tonight, Daniel, we've got one game in progress. We've got a few that we'll preview a little later on this evening. And then, of course, we've got many that are still, well...
percolating?
Percolating, ones that we're still trying to figure out what exactly happened.
Right.
A few games that are already in the book. On top of all that, a random keyboard in between us, which it just showed up here via U.S. mail. We're not sure what this is, but we've decided to use it, Dan. What is what's this button? It's
Tire fire.
Tire fire.
We're going to use this to
technology, y'all.
Bring in our tire fire nominees. We've got a few good ones that will get you through in a little bit here. Let's get started. There's a game in progress right now. It is Tennessee and Florida.
Correct.
We were thinking about maybe just showing you.
Right.
Just showing you us watching the game.
The referee is making an announcement. It is 7-7 as we are recording this.
7-7.
It's a bad idea to just film us watching a game.
7-7.
Right.
11 minutes left in the second quarter. We talked about this game very early on. Actually, they talked about this game on College Game Day today.
Right. And how do you talk about this game without showing a duck's butthole? A dog's butthole.
Yeah. We have a GIF of this. Lee Corso was actually on the set of College Game Day.
Right.
And there it is.
Oh, wow.
It's in high speed. The dog is not actually on Red Bull.
It's so much better in high speed.
We see the back end of the dog, which is a little alarming.
That dog has 17 Adderall pills under its tongue right now. It is just focused on weirdness on a TV set. But yes, that is what we have.
So I'm judging from what we saw there that Lee Corso went with Tennessee.
Yes, he did.
You went with Tennessee as well. Why did you like Tennessee in this game?
I like Tennessee in this game because I believed in their offense more than Florida's offense, and I believed in their evolution of their defense and what the coaches have been able to do defensively thus far early on in the season.
Right.
And Florida's just too inconsistent for me. I think at this point, Florida's ceiling might be between 21 and 24, 28 points. They scored 28, I believe, against Bowling Green. But I'm just not confident in Florida's ability to keep up if this gets to a shootout point.
Sure, and Florida's got the defense, that I think a lot of people like, but they had the injury to Jelani Jenkins.
Yep, Ronald Powell before the season,
Of course. So Tyler Bray, Justin Hunter, what can they do against this Florida defense is going to remain a storyline. We'll keep you abreast of the situation as things become available.
Yep.
Another game tonight, though, that I know you're going to be watching very closely is a Pac-12 fight.
Pac-12 fight.
I just made that up.
I like that a lot.
USC, a 9-point favorite on the road against Stanford.
Yeah.
What are the keys for this game?
Well, luckily, we have smarter people than us.
Great.
Smarter people than we, I think, is the way to go.
Okay.
We have a key party, which is a fun, sexy swinger term from the 70s, for this game. Obviously, I'll take the Stanford side of the ball. You're going to go USC. It's harder to read, obviously. Stanford-wise, it's going to be the open field tackling. Obviously, you're not going to stop Marquise Lee and Robert Woods, but if they're able to be fundamentally sound on that side of the ball, look for them to be okay. You have the return of Ryan Hewitt. He's sort of playing that H-back. He's going to go out for passes in the short yardage game offensively, but he's also going to be in front of Stephen Taylor. So it's just a more familiar feeling in the backfield there. And USC is going to crowd the box. They're going to make Josh Nunez beat them. And so having Ryan Hewitt there for play action stuff, that's going to help. And I don't remember what the third one was.
Well,
Leanne, can I see the third one real quick? What is the third one, Ty?
The return of Ryan Hewitt.
The return of Ryan Hewitt? No, the second one.
The second one is offensive edges and seams.
Right, I guess that's part of the third one as well. That's a matter of USC stacking the box and what they're going to be able to do behind the linebackers and how they're going to be able to spread the linebackers.
Sure, and they're going to feed Stephon Taylor a healthy dose on the ground.
Still increasing, but not to where they'd like him to be.
Exactly. So that will be an interesting matchup to watch as well, mainly because that USC front is very inexperienced.
Yep.
Now, in terms of USC, what some of their keys are if they want to win this game.
Khaled Holmes.
Yeah, I mean, they just have to find a way, to get the pressure. They got to get the pressure. They also have to get the kicking game in order, and they have to make Josh Nunez beat him, which is what you basically just said.
Right.
You need to basically prove he's not Andrew Luck.
Right,
and he doesn't need to be Andrew Luck either, which is a good thing for Stanford. They've got a lot of other assets that they can rely on. But certainly, if they can get a decent game out of him, that will be a benefit to Stanford. USC has to get pressure on him, has to take him away early, maybe get in his head.
Right. It's interesting when you look at what USC is going to be able to do defensively in stacking the box. They'll bring a safety up probably in most situations. Nickel Roby will probably be on an island against Ty Montgomery, who is the best playmaker on the outside for Stanford. And it's how well are they going to be able to take advantage of the other receivers getting one-on-one matchups against the USC secondary. So that's going to be quite interesting. I think it's going to be a good game. Ultimately, I think USC wins this one close, just because the matchups have been so close. USC, I think, is going to struggle at times with Stanford's offensive line and struggle with Stanford's defensive line, but ultimately there's just too much talent on the field for the Trojans. I like USC by, I think, 4 or 5 points.
Yeah, if it wouldn't have been for that opening week game against San Jose State for Stanford and what we saw to Josh Nunes there.
Bigger, but he had a pretty good game last week against Duke.
He looked very good last week.
Throwing a lot of fades accurately to Levine Toilolo.
If it wouldn't have been for that first week's game, I'd be inclined to go Stanford straight up here.
Really?
Stanford's had USC's number over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't read too deeply into, well, they won 4 of the last 5, things like that. They have sort of had their number.
Right.
And this is still a really good team with a good defense. I think they can hang with USC. I do think USC wins this game by 4 or 5, somewhere in the range that you mentioned.
I think that open field tackling thing, and this, by the way, Rule of Tree, the great Stanford blog, and Conquest Chronicles for all of the best USC stuff, that open field tackling thing is going to be huge. The difference between Marquise Lee getting an ankle, getting a hand on his ankle and not, obviously, is just 6 points.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Another game that we're going to be following this evening, certainly one that I'm going to be following very, very closely.
I'm going to be following Ty following this game. It's
Notre
so fun.
Dame versus Michigan State. Notre Dame 20th in the nation. Michigan State up to 10. Michigan State very good. Might be the best team in the entire Big Ten right now because the whole conference sort of thrown into a tizzy after Wisconsin.
Don't say tizzy on TV. I was going to say TV. Don't say tizzy on camera.
Lost 10-7 last week on the road in Corvallis.
That's true.
That sort of threw a lot of things off in the Big Ten. So,
yeah.
Michigan State might be in a position where they are the best team. Tonight, though, they need to go out and prove it. Notre Dame, a top 20 caliber team. I don't think anyone would question that. A very good defense. They've got a lot of guys back. The question will be, can Notre Dame block? Can Notre Dame do the things it needs to do to keep Everett Golson protected? We've actually got 2 reverbs here.
We've got the double reverb into one cohesive orgy of information ready to listen to. Orgy of information. There it is.
1 foot down, and the only colors are our blogs here on the SB Nation Network. Let's roll those reverbs.
This is Ben Knibbie from UW Dogpound. Physically, on the UW side, you have Keith Price, who everybody's heard of, one of the great quarterbacks in the nation. But also there is Austin Spurrier-Jenkins, one of the top tight ends in the nation, big threat. And huge stud on the outside is Cason Williams, wide receiver. Defensively, after being absolutely dreadful last season, look for Josh Shirley to make an impact attacking the quarterback, and they may struggle a little bit defending the run upside or up the middle, but the secondary and...
That was Washington preview. That was Washington LSU previewage from last week. I don't know if we have the reverb from... Let's just talk about the Notre Dame Michigan State matchup even more.
We can do that.
Technical difficulties.
And
we need one of
will.
those screens with like a B, like we'll be right back.
We need someone to come in with the
internet.
Well, look, tire fire. That's tire fire omni.
That's a double tire fire from us.
So here's the deal for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Notre Dame needs to protect its quarterback. They need to protect Golston, or Golson, I should say, from William Golston. That's going to be an issue because last week with Kawan Short and Purdue, it didn't work out so well. So they need to get better at it. Do we have the reverb now?
I believe we do. Let's see if we can get the Notre Dame Michigan State version.
Hey guys, it's Eric Murtaugh from One Foot Down. I think this should be a great game tonight. I think it'll be really close. I like for Notre Dame's defensive line to dominate up front and really make it hard for Michigan State to run the ball. I think the return of running back Sherwood's going to be a big boost to the Irish offense. And overall, I like the amount of playmakers on offense for Notre Dame in comparison to Michigan State, who doesn't have a lot of proven playmakers outside of running back Le'Veon Bell. However, I think Michigan State has the more complete defense. I like their secondary and linebackers in coverage. I think that's going to cause a lot of problems for the Irish offense. And you add in the road game and a hostile environment with Irish quarterback Everett Golson having communication issues so far this year. And I like the stronger defense to take this one. Michigan State 24, Notre Dame 17.
Hey, this is Chris O'Neill from the Only Colors. This will be the 4th time in the last 5 East Lansing meetings between these teams that MSU and Notre Dame will be playing at night, including the fake field goal to win in 2010. This year, MSU is hoping a fierce defense and powerful running game can get them to 3-0. My 3 keys for the game are, number 1, no turnovers from Andrew Maxwell. Outside of his 3 interceptions against Boise State, Maxwell's numbers have actually been really good. If he can avoid a major mistake, the defense will keep this game close for him. Number 2, don't let Everett Golson move outside the pocket. If defensive ends William Golston and Marcus Rush can contain, that'll make MSU's blitzes even more effective against the mobile QB. Finally, a third key will be to get Le'Veon Bell going, which seems pretty obvious. But MSU's running game was held at 1.3 yards per carry in last year's loss at Notre Dame. The offensive line's healthy this time around, and a strong running game should help Andrew Maxwell work against a thin Notre Dame secondary.
All right, big thanks to, again, One Foot Down and The Only Colors, the blogs right here on the SB Nation Network, giving us some of their keys for tonight's game.
What's your big matchup?
Big matchup for me, Andrew Maxwell against the Notre Dame secondary. Notre Dame last year was...
I'm surprised you're not in East Lansing right now wearing blue and gold and a part of, just like a Nickelback ready to go in. Like, if you need me, I'm ready. If you need me, I'm ready.
Last year, they stacked the box against that Michigan State rushing attack.
And did quite well.
They did very well.
Right.
Andrew Maxwell's a guy who got a laser arm first week of the year against Boise State. Didn't matter how.
Throwing up the picks on picks.
3 interceptions, not good. Last week looked a lot better. What Andrew Maxwell will show up tonight. That's one matchup. Another one for me is Notre Dame's offensive line, which I just mentioned.
Right.
You know, whether or not they can block William Golston, if they can keep Everett Golston healthy. I am concerned we'll see Tommy Rees, although many people jumped on me for saying too much about Rees.
Tire fire.
Say that again.
Tire fire.
Let's get that closer to the mic. That's what I think about Tommy Rees. But with all due credit to him, despite the fact that he went 3 of 8, he did lead the team down the field. Last week, Notre Dame got a 3-point victory over Purdue. They need to do better this week on the road in East Lansing. Game's usually close, and Michigan State's a better team.
You know what I like? I like the fact that we have the Nick Foles and a losing effort from last year. We're playing around with different quarterbacks and a losing effort from this season. I sort of like adding, I don't know if we're there yet because it's only happened once, Tommy Rees with a nice drive ending in a field goal.
I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with that yet.
Tommy Rees with a field goal drive. Like, we have to figure out the nomenclature and the wordage and the verbiage, whatever. But I think we could be seeing that.
It's going to be a good game tonight.
Yes.
I'm confident it's going to be a good game. I saw
up front, great push and pull,
You know, point spread's about 6. If you're better, not to say we're betters, but...
I'm not. I lose money all the time.
Game's usually pretty close.
Right.
Game's usually pretty close. So just something to keep an eye on as we go through, again, tonight's game. So let's get back to some of the action that was a little earlier today.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech on the road.
Tire fire.
A Tire Fire nominee loses the game on the road at Pitt, 35-17. We said when we did our Wednesday show that this just felt like a weird game. We looked at the point spread, about 10 points.
Smelled.
And, you know, you look back, Pittsburgh lost in week 1 at home to Youngstown State by 14.
Go Penguins.
If they lost by 14 to the Penguins, for sure they should be a lot bigger underdog.
Right.
Against the Hokies.
Per the transitive property that doesn't exist at all in college football.
So logically, it made a lot of sense that this game would be a far bigger blowout. Well, it wasn't.
No.
It was a blowout actually.
Look at your storytelling. I like it. But it wasn't.
I'm just trying to get into
I
this
like
here.
that.
It's a Saturday night.
I'm goosebumps.
So, Virginia Tech loses by 18. What do you take away from something like this? If you're Virginia Tech, a team that had a lot of losses on offense in terms of skill positions, but certainly a program that I think we all expected more from.
I think Virginia Tech looked at that game that Pitt played against Cincinnati last week and perhaps gleaned a little bit too much about what they thought was a really bad Pitt team, when in fact it was just a Pitt team that started really poorly, children. They just started bad. Give them a chance. Sunseri. I feel good about saying with a certain bit of authority that Virginia Tech is not as good as a lot of people thought. They are experienced on the defensive side of the ball, but certainly susceptible. 500-plus yards, I believe, for Pitt today. Tino Sunseri had himself a day.
Had himself a game.
Had himself a game. And the great thing is that two-headed running back situation in the Pitt backfield as Paul Chryst continues to develop. Rhythm on that offense. The offensive line continues to come together. Tino Sunseri, again, not doing anything to really take points off of the board. And really having a nice game. So Russell Shell and Ray Graham really coming together. I mean, it's something like 46, 47 carries between them. So riding the horses, and good to see Pitt. I mean, good to see Pitt sort of taking nice steps forward. And that Virginia Tech offense. I mean, just missed opportunities. Logan Thomas had picks, but there were drops, there were tips. It was just bad news all over the place.
It's more apparent now than ever that Logan Thomas, despite the fact that he may be number 15 on Mel Kiper's most recent
people have
big
him even
board.
higher.
Some people had him at 1
That's
earlier
not
in the
okay.
year.
Not okay.
You
As
know,
I drink my Fresca. Oh, no. It's not Fresca.
That's right, not Fresca. Logan Thomas needs help, Dan.
Yeah.
He needs help. He can't do it all himself. He's not that far along in his progression as a quarterback, and he had a lot of drops today. I was impressed, though, with the Pittsburgh defense. The Pittsburgh defense is a team that is a unit, I should say, that was not very stout in its first 2 games.
I like when you talk about units, not that stout.
In this matchup, held Virginia Tech to something like 326 in
you hear
total
the reggaeton outside, the reggaeton sirens?
They're coming to take us away.
That's nice.
So,
but in so much rhythm.
Yeah.
Well, it's a rhythm nation outside.
Congratulations to Pitt.
Thank you very much. Thank you for reining me back into the college football discussion.
We do have a gift from that Pitt game as well. This sort of sums the whole thing up. Really, if you're interested in realizing what happened in this game.
It's a double block. It sums things up, I guess, for a brief moment in time for Virginia Tech.
We had a word. We said it was sponsored by like Man Milk or something.
Oh, Boy Milk?
Boy Milk, that's it.
Good old Boy Milk. I don't know if the GIF is, there's the GIF. There's Virginia Tech. That's the one thing they essentially did right today.
Pretty much. That's the entire game.
If you can take out 2 guys, if you can block 2 guys with 2 guys, 1 body, I don't know. There's a video out there that sounds surprisingly similar to that. I like this play a lot. It really reduces the actual number of players you need to have on the field, which Virginia Tech needs all of them.
Yeah.
So that was Pitt, Virginia Tech. What do we have next?
All right, Cal, Ohio State. Ohio State favored by 17 coming into this one. Didn't win by quite that margin.
Nope.
Actually had a pretty good of a run from Cal, a team, again, that we weren't sure what we were going to get here.
No.
I know both you and I expected Ohio State to just go out there and boat race them. This one actually ended up being pretty tight.
It ended up very close. At a certain point, it was 20-7. It looked like Ohio State was going to run away with it, and actually looked like physically they were going to run away. We actually have a GIF of Braxton Miller, Mr. Do Everything for Ohio State, with just a ridiculous run, breaking ankles, if we can all see that with our beautiful eyes.
He might be the Heisman frontrunner at this point.
There is a case to be made for him in the top 5. Look at this, just the bounce out and then just the acceleration. I don't know if that's sped up at all. I think at the end it is right there.
Yeah,
that would be unconscious and unconscionable if he was able to do it that quickly. But yeah, I love watching him play. He's great. A nice touch on the ball as he's going deep down the seam. It was a fun game for him. But yeah, they did let Cal sneak back in the game. Cal started counting on the skill players that they've recruited quite well. Chris Harper, who's a true freshman from where I used to be from. I think he went to Crespi High School. He had a nice game early on. And Keenan Allen, of course, is as talented as any wide receiver in the country. Brendan Bigelow, we have a GIF of that run. Just a ridiculous burner, both in the return game and on the ground. Can we GIF the crap out of it? Look at this Brendan Bigelow champ.
We asked people
guy.
We asked people on Twitter, Dan,
right.
What were the 2 storylines for you? And the ones that kept coming back were Braxton Miller and his pursuit of whatever he's pursuing, because he has been Ohio State's entire offense in the early going of the season. And then Brendan Bigelow here, who had 3 rushes for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. I believe we say he had himself a game.
Yeah, he hit that hole hard.
He did what he had to do for sure. So good for him. All right, what else happened today? Well,
we have papers.
Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah. I have a question here from the tweeters. I don't remember who it's from, asking when Louisiana Monroe would get their invitation to the Big East. It's already in the mail, everybody. It's already in the mail.
Louisiana Monroe, last week goes on the road to Arkansas, wins that game in overtime.
That's all you got?
What can you say? I mean, now this week
they keep it close against Auburn.
On the road against Auburn.
They needed overtime.
Auburn's that great a team based on what we saw last week.
No, they're not.
Tire fire.
That's really
last
annoying.
week. That was Kyle Frazier.
Yeah.
But, you have to like what you see out of these guys. They go out, they have a huge win last week. They obviously were coached up to the point where they still had something in the tank.
Yep, go Hawks.
Go on the road, square off against Auburn, don't get the W, but close enough, and I think it probably put the fear of God into Auburn for fear that they could lose this one here. That would have been a really bad loss for them.
This is Auburn pre-SEC schedule other than Mississippi State from last weekend. And they're Louisiana Monroe, God bless them, but they're not the team that should be scaring teams with as much talent as Auburn and other SEC West teams have. I don't know what to take out of this game. Here's my big takeaway for Auburn.
Yes.
Kyle Frazier, not all that good. We know this.
Right.
But he does help his team win when he's not throwing the ball or handing the ball. Actually, his handoff efficiency rating is outstanding.
It's off the
But when he's able to catch a ball out of the backfield on a trick play, maybe this should be their entire offense. We do have a GIF. Kyle Frazier having himself a nice little catch.
A GIF-heavy show here tonight.
GIF-heavy. Look at this.
Watch this.
So it's a nice play out of the backfield, actually. I like the footwork here from as we're doing commentary for something everybody can see. But yeah, Kyle Frazier, nice in the open field.
He can run.
He can run, which is a secondary skill.
Now, who's number 4? Can he play quarterback?
I think everybody's going to get a shot at quarterback.
If he could play quarterback, not a bad.
It's basically Auburn is when you're in elementary school and the kid that's the all-time quarterback is out sick.
Right.
That's what it needs to. Everybody talks about the student walk-on kicker situations at schools everywhere. I think maybe a student walk-on quarterback in the Plains.
I can see that.
It's time.
Gene Chizik needs to get on that right away.
Gene Chizik. Let me ask you about this before we get into the rest of the action. Is Gene Chizik somebody that will be one with a job at the end of the year if they're as downish as they are right now. As it stands right now, 500 in the SEC seems kind of crazy.
New offensive coordinator, new defensive
Right,
coordinator.
and I say this because sometimes coaches have the opportunity to clean house.
Right.
But he has, for lack of a better term, Ted Roof is gone. Obviously, Gus Malzahn chose to pursue head coaching. He has a clean house. He has been able to rehire people that he wants to bring in. So now it's a matter of these people succeeding with their specific coaching positions.
Well, he won a national championship 2 years ago.
He did.
Won that over Oregon, I believe.
I don't remember. Who can
might have been
remember
over
elbows that were down?
It might have been over
Everybody
Oregon.
knows this.
But he did win a national championship, and I think
Right.
with that, you get some amount of wiggle room, especially when you get normal attrition. Coaches go elsewhere once the rest of the world can see what these guys do. Gus Malzahn with Arkansas State.
There's
Ted Roof with
no
Penn State.
shorter leash than
Yeah.
there is in the SEC.
So
with
I
coaches.
do think that he deserves a little more wiggle room, but
Right.
it needs to get better. It absolutely needs to get better than it is right now. A game like this against ULM isn't good enough.
No.
You simply need to be better. By the way, good job by Colton Browning.
Yes.
Someone wrote into us on Twitter that they need to launch a Browning for Heisman
They
campaign.
don't need to do that, but it would be very cool to see sort of somebody that's very deserving of attention receive attention as national as he can be. Yeah, and the other thing now to take away from this game is Arkansas lost to Louisiana Monroe in overtime last week.
Right.
And Arkansas just got slapped around.
Fire, fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be, people are either going to love this or they're tuning out in droves.
Just in droves, yeah.
Right. Yeah, they get slapped around by Alabama.
Badly.
Real bad.
Anvil slapped. I mean, this was bad.
So what is there to take away now at this point? I mean, obviously with Alabama, we expect them to be the best team in the country because they are the best team in the country. They're ranked number one. Arkansas it's inexcusable how the depths that they've succumbed to, even without Tyler Wilson, out obviously Bobby Petrino. It's completely unacceptable. And I mean, how much does this speak to depth in the SEC to you?
It doesn't speak to it much, that's for
Right.
sure. I mean, there are a couple teams. We'll get to this a little bit later. I think
Right.
we have a Twitter question about that. But if you compare, let's say, the Pac-12 to the SEC,
Right.
how do both these conferences rank in
It's
terms of
interesting.
depth? It's an interesting discussion to
Because
have.
there's telling non-conference results in games to draw from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that a little bit later. No doubt that will spark some debate. But Arkansas, not a good game. Auburn, also not a good game.
No.
Now have a common foe in ULM, and both of them nearly met the same fate.
I want to see what Jesse Williams looks like as he prepares for this Arkansas game. I feel like he knew something. I think we all thought we knew before getting into it.
We'll get to that in a little bit. I do want to talk about Wake Forest. Speaking of games that were just total abominations.
Oh, God.
Wake Forest against Florida State. This is a revenge spot for Florida State. Remember, Florida State lost this game last year on the edge, I guess, of the 3-game downslide that they had early in the season.
4 out of 6 to Wake, yeah.
Not so much today. 52-0 was your final score here. Point spread was 28.
Yep.
They covered that almost twice over. Florida State just looked dynamic, held Wake Forest, I believe, 126 total yards in this game. A far cry from the Florida State team we saw last year. They've got Clemson on deck. Clearly no look-ahead spot here for the Noles. They're loaded for bear.
You have to look at Clemson. I'm going second person here. You have to look at Clemson with their win over Furman and think they are so much better than Florida State. I don't know. That means nothing. Yeah, Florida State, it's the running game. Chris Thompson had a very nice day. It's that defense, even without Brandon Jenkins, who will be missed, an All-American defensive end for the Noles. It is so fast, that defense, so deep at different positions. They've recruited so well. LaMarcus Joyner in the defensive backfield stands out. The Bjorn Werner coming off of the other edge. They are scary. That is a scary defense. Now, as scary as things are looking, because when you couple the schedule, that's pretty ideal for Florida State.
Sure.
A dominant defense, a newfound, at least we're seeing peaks of a newfound running game, which they didn't have last season. Is that enough to make you think, even after Wake, which is not much to draw from, and 2-0 opponents, just awful cupcakes, which to me it's kind of redundant. Do you think Florida State now is a run-of-the-table situation team?
I wanted to see a game like this.
Yeah.
I wanted to see a game like this because you go out there, you win a game 52-0. 52-0 that's a statement game.
Right.
That is a statement game. You go out there, you win a game like this with a Clemson on deck.
Right.
That tells me something. That's what I look for when I'm trying to figure out who's going to win this thing. I want to see who's going to play above and beyond their competition. That's what they did here against Wake, despite the fact that it was a revenge spot, all sorts of things like that. It was really, really good to see this from Florida State. So I know Phil Steele likes them a whole lot.
Phil Steele does.
So
he also liked Oklahoma a whole lot, which we're not sure about. The stat that we saw today, Bud Elliott from Tomahawk Nation said that Florida State held Wake Forest to 0 or fewer yards offensively on more than half of their plays from scrimmage, and that includes plays in which scrubs were on the field for the Noles. So you like that wire-to-wire mentality.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens next week, big game against Clemson. Before we get to Alabama, Dan, how do the fine folks subscribe?
They subscribe really easily. You go to the youtube.com's, is it singular? youtube.com/SBNation. There's a subscribe button, and you just hit it.
It's somewhere up in those
in
regions.
the ether. Just hit the subscribe button. It's actually not in our window right now. I used to do that in my videos and got yelled at for doing that. But there are subscribe buttons everywhere, and it really gets everything to your inbox quickly about what you should be watching on the SB Nation Network, including the D-Man and the Solid Verbal.
Right here. Okay.
What's up?
You mentioned Alabama, Arkansas earlier. This is a game we talked about it. Weren't sure about Tyler Wilson, whether or not he was going to play. He did not play. That also did not have positive ramifications for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
You're so kind in the way you describe these
Trying
things.
to be formal here.
Quite
honestly, if you watched the game, it was far less formal.
Correct.
This was just an all-out boat racing, and we do have the gift now of Jesse Williams basically getting ready for this. It has a lot of, what was that movie? Was it Necessary Roughness with the face paint?
Oh, yeah. I like the contrast, the white. It pops.
What is that?
It's guano. I don't know if you remember the second Ace Ventura. It's guano. Yeah, it's not okay. But you just look at him, and he's a bad man. That tells you everything you need to know. Like
I'm afraid just watching it here, and it's coming through a television set.
So I'll ask you this right now.
Yeah.
Jesse Williams, nose tackle for Alabama.
Okay.
Jadeveon Clowney.
Beast man, yeah.
Jarvis Jones.
Almost decapitated people last week.
Manti Te'o.
Ooh, my boy.
Who's your number one pick if you're starting a team?
Wow. Jadeveon Clowney.
Really?
I like Jadeveon Clowney. He's young.
Yeah.
If I'm starting a team right now, if you're giving me the pick of those four guys, right now, I'm going to take Clowney. Just because he's younger, he can grow into his body. But quite honestly, I'm willing to take anyone.
Obviously.
Jarvis Jones. Last week,
he's just so ridiculous.
When I was on the bus home from this place,
so ridiculous.
I was listening to the Missouri feed through the old interwebs.
Were they just screaming the whole time?
Well, they were afraid.
Oh God!
They're like, Jarvis Jones again. Oh my God.
James Franklin is dead.
So you look at what he did last week. All these guys are game changers. We're going to see what Te'o does tonight.
Yeah.
A good old-fashioned matchup between him and Bell, and obviously there's a lot going on with Te'o. It's hard not to root for him given the stuff going on in his personal life. But quite honestly, take any one of those guys. If I'm picking now, I'd be inclined to take Clowney just to, I don't know, be different and interesting.
You're not going wrong with any of those guys. Jesse Williams is enticing just because he anchors a defensive line, but ridiculous and just scary what the potential is at this point, given how quickly everything is gelled with who they've lost on both sides of the field for Alabama and how quickly they've stepped in and succeeded both in the offensive backfield, the defensive back seven. It's a ridiculous situation.
And then there was the Virginia-Georgia Tech game.
That happened.
This game happened. Last year, Virginia got the better of Georgia Tech.
Right.
Really bottled up that option attack. This year did not bottle up the rushing attack.
You're so
kind Let me look at this here. I believe over 500 total yards for Georgia Tech. Virginia couldn't do much of anything. This was just bad from the word go. Georgia Tech never really in doubt in this one here.
Right.
Georgia Tech's a pretty good team. We've been saying that for a while. We know Georgia Tech's a good team.
In Atlanta, against a team that I don't think we would say is that beyond slightly above average in Virginia. We weren't expecting huge things from the Hoos, but a nice team, a nice season last year in 2011. Georgia Tech, when they're rolling, when they're on, and you're unable to prepare for that offense, it's as beautiful and destructive a thing in college football as we have, just because it's so creative and interesting and they look different from so many other teams. So good for Georgia Tech. Now it makes the ACC a little more interesting that we know what they're capable of against decent teams. Beyond that, I don't know how much there is to take away.
Okay. We've got a few rapid-fire topies here before we get to our tire
14-7 Tennessee, by the way.
14-7, wow.
That changes everything.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. We should get a clip of us watching. Here we go. Yep. Okay. What do we have?
All right. Back to the rapid fire. I'll throw a few things out
Hit
there.
me.
You tell me what you think. Louisville, are they or are they not the best team no one knows about right now?
They were until the second half of this game.
About that.
Teddy Bridgewater, a very nice game. Louisville, Sonoris. I know Sonoris Perry. I'm bad with how to pronounce names. North Carolina give them credit. They just absolutely outscored. It was something like 27-3 or something in the second half against this Louisville team at home in Papa John's football stadium.
Still cracks me up.
The Papa John's.
I can't take that serious. You ever notice the weird nod thing Papa John does on his commercials?
At the end of his, like the...
He's sort of like... It's like he's a bird or something.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't like it. Papa John.
Kind of creepy.
Do better.
Just saying.
Yeah, so Louisville, really nice first half, really put their feet down, the cardinal feet down on the Tar Heel throat. I don't know where this imagery is coming from. But really just letting up in the second half, not finishing at all, and pulling out the win, terrific. They covered the 3-point spread or whatever it was. Good for North Carolina for showing that kind of fight early on in the Larry Fedora tenure. But beyond that, we knew Louisville was going to be one of the best teams in the Big East. I don't think today changes anything. Sure. It actually becomes more interesting, the Big East, with Pitt playing as well as they did today. So the Louisville game, disappointing that they couldn't put things together and adjust to what North Carolina was or was not doing in the first half.
Yeah, we actually had someone email in who was watching this game, made a drinking game out of every time they mentioned a Teddy Bridgewater completion.
Right.
Because he was very efficient. So
that's what he does.
Let's just get in on this while we can.
Let's drink some Not Fresca.
Teddy Bridgewater, another one of those guys who, again, if you don't know about Teddy Bridgewater, you probably should know about Teddy Bridgewater.
That's not Fresca, everybody. We're not promoting Fresca. This is very much not Fresca. Okay.
All right. Penn State wins its first game.
You hear the reggaeton sirens?
We got all sorts of stuff.
You know what's happening? We're on fire.
That's right. That's what it means. Penn State's on fire.
Yeah, good for Penn State.
Or not, maybe quite literally on fire. Penn State wins its first game against Navy.
Yes.
Tire.
Yeah, because we're on fire.
Sure.
What I'm thinking about this, my reaction when I saw the score of this game, Navy is internationally defeated. They are the only team that will probably lose for the significant future. I don't know how long we'll have it, but they're 0-2 on 2 different continents. I don't know what that means.
Something.
It's a fun fact.
That's something.
Yes, and good for Penn State.
When you cut the Navy highlights at the end of the year,
right?
Probably something you got to include in the YouTube reel, I would think.
They were defeated
just
on 2 different continents. Just
chart the plane with a little dot like Carmen Sandiego.
Oh, it was a great show. I love that show. You look like you'd be a good gumshoe.
I would do it.
You'd be my gumshoe.
I would do it. All right.
All right, next game.
2 other things.
Rapid fire.
I want to ask you what's more important to you, or what's more accurate.
Yeah.
DeAnthony Thomas's numbers being otherworldly.
Okay.
Or Johnny Manziel being a poor man's Braxton Miller.
That's a good. Okay. Well, the DeAnthony Thomas is for real. We've seen him through a full Pac-12 schedule last season in the Rose Bowl. His numbers are for real. Even the touches he had, 10 touches for like 220 yards, 220. I mean, that's outstanding. I mean, 22 yards a touch.
So now, what high school were they playing in Tennessee? I didn't see the.
How dare you?
I didn't see what town it was from.
The fine tradition of Tennessee Tech with Derek Rogers, former Tennessee wide receiver and transfer, is unparalleled. When you look at Tennessee Tech, is the best football program among all of the Tennessee technical universities and colleges. I think we can say that with certainty.
Sure.
Okay. That now said, it was a replacement game. It was the cupcake of cupcakes. It's one of those like wedding tier of cupcakes.
Sure.
Was what Tennessee Tech was. Two teams that really were not deserving to be on.
So now, do they have 3 wins, or do you just half the first and the third and count that as 2?
How dare you, sir?
How do we treat a situation like that?
We treat a situation with Oregon needed to do. No, it's pathetic, and I would have much rather seen Oregon play against better teams. Fresno State is a good team to schedule. They're local, and
anytime,
they've
anywhere.
had success anytime, anywhere. Well, Pat Hill, I mean, he's not there,
of course,
so he's not anywhere.
I still like this.
But yeah, it's not ideal as a fan to watch, to sit through and like, oh wow, I turned the game on, it's 42-7.
But you have to like what you see. You have to like the numbers, because obviously the schedule gets a lot more difficult next week when they square off against Arizona, a team that beat Oklahoma State just a week ago.
All sorts of offense in that game.
You know, so they need to go out there. They need to prove that even if the competition's inferior, they still can perform at a very high level, and they did that here. So that's good.
And the good thing too is they didn't close in the second half poorly, like they've been doing these past couple of weeks and being outscored in the second half. Byron Marshall, the younger brother of Cam Marshall at Arizona State, went for over 100 yards in this game. And you're seeing talent. Brian Bennett had a nice touchdown. So all the reps you're getting is what's important going into this Pac-12 season.
Okay. Real quick, before we move on, we should point out about Bo Pelini.
Yeah.
Bo Pelini taken away in an ambulance today. Kind of scary stuff there. Nebraska did end up getting the victory, but we certainly hope Bo Pelini's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was flu-like symptoms.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't know
we don't know for certain exactly what it was.
In any case, we hope he's okay. Be okay, Bo Pelini. We like you very much. And we should mention, by the way, with Bo Pelini, Nebraska Video was kind enough. We did a feature on them. This is so cool. It's Nebraska.
We're all Nebraska
Swag.
video fans here in the studio. Everyone's wearing these red shirts.
By the way, any video departments out there that want their shirts on camera, let us know. Hit us up on the tweets.
At Solid Verbal.
See, that I forgot what it was, and then I looked back
right
at that
there
screen,
us.
and the leprechaun and the duck, and I remembered everything.
It sort of makes it all come full frame. Okay.
Yes.
Let's make that awkward transition then to our Tire Fire presentation. We threw a few out there.
Yeah.
Let's roll the graphic. It's our favorite part of the show.
I like it a lot.
Very I Love Lucy-ish. Had a few nominees here, Daniel. The Virginia Tech defense, to me, stands out above all else. The Cal kicking game, which missed 3 field goals, one of which, I should say the last of which, actually set up that long touchdown to Devin Smith, which eventually swung the game in favor of the Buckeyes. And then finally, just Arkansas in general for having no depth after losing its starting quarterback. Arkansas in a bit of turmoil this season for reasons we're not going to go into right now. How much leeway do they get? Your answer, probably not this much to look this bad against, well, 2 teams in consecutive weeks, one of which was a lot worse than the other. So real quick, Virginia Tech defense, Cal kicking game, or Arkansas in general? Go.
I'm going to say Arkansas in general.
Really?
Just because they were thought of to be, and this is not the fault of Arkansas.
Okay.
They were thought of to be a top 10 team. Granted, this was when Bobby Petrino was still around, when Tyler Wilson was presumed to be healthy and not concussed. And we do hope he gets better quickly. So I would say Arkansas scoring such few points. I don't know if that's the best way of putting it. And really not being able to adjust at all to the point where they can't score. Granted, this Alabama team is great. So as great as we know they can be early on in the season, the Virginia Tech defense, it's a lapse. Pitt has talent all over the field.
True, but they had, see, here's the thing for me with Tech's defense. 9 starters back from last year. 9 starters back from last year.
It's completely unacceptable.
So for me, they get the tire fire.
Right.
I think they get the tire fire. You let Pitt go over 500 total yards. No, again, no knock on Pitt.
Right.
You got to do better than that. Got to do better than that. That to me was a tire fire.
Yeah, I just figured high SEC talent at Arkansas, all over the field, both sides of the ball. Sort of the coach shuffling. Sure, I don't think if Bobby Petrino is the coach in this game, what's the score?
Probably not 52-0. Or whatever it ended up being, 100 to
52 to 10, 52 to 14,
to 4. Yeah, I mean it could have been anything, but it wouldn't have been 0.
United Arkansas stands sometimes.
We can give 2 tires.
United Arkansas gets bowled over.
We need to give out burning tires to people.
Right. Well, I'll give you the honors because I think you present a better case.
Tire fire.
People are going to hate this thing.
I'm sure they hate it.
All right, let's get to the Twitter. If you look out at Solid Verbal, we've been planning this for a few weeks.
Yeah.
We had people write in before the show, during the show. What are people saying?
Ty, you've been asking me questions for the majority of this show.
Now it's my turn.
I'm gonna rapid fire you with some questions that people are tuning in to our Twitter on.
This is real time, by the way.
Real time.
Okay.
How nervous is Ty before the Michigan State Notre Dame game?
Next question.
Do you think Cal should recruit a female soccer player to be their kicker going forward?
Only if Penn State has dibs on her first.
Does Mo Isom have eligibility to transfer?
I hope so.
I don't think she does. I think she'd still have to sit out. Who has the deepest conference in the country?
This gets back to our question before, Pac-12, SEC. I think it's between those 2.
Right.
And I think if you go 1 for 1, it's probably a pretty good matchup.
So
honestly.
Top of the conference, USC/Alabama. I think it's probably too close to call at this point. We don't know enough. LSU, Oregon, I'd probably give the edge to LSU. They've played more teams, and they just absolutely brutalized Washington. Beyond that, the 3rd best team, maybe Georgia. 3rd best team, probably Stanford, maybe UCLA. It's hard to know at this point.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens in this Tennessee game.
Right.
I'm not ready to christen them as the 3rd or 4th best team in the SEC quite yet, but they've looked pretty good thus far.
How many good teams are in the SEC? Which teams are good, legitimate top 12 talent teams?
Top 12?
Top 12-ish, somewhere around there. Elite.
So Arkansas has essentially eliminated itself.
No Arkansas.
So that's easy. Alabama.
Any team on a losing streak after 3 games, I'm going to say not elite.
Alabama, Arkansas.
So you are including Arkansas.
Or excuse me.
Alabama, LSU.
Alabama, LSU. I think you could probably throw Georgia in there.
After that Missouri performance, I agree. I think they're a top 6 team, top 5 team.
I think so. I want to wait and see on Tennessee. I think they have the potential. They certainly have a lot of experience.
Schedule's not terrible.
Florida, I don't think so.
Right.
Florida, I don't think so just because of that offense. I like the defense, but not the offense.
I'm going to say Florida.
Mississippi State, not top 12.
They can hang in games and they can give people trouble for 2.5 quarters. I don't think wire to wire, which is today's phrase du jour.
Right.
They're there.
I wouldn't put them top 12. Other than those 4, I don't know if I put anyone else in there.
So South Carolina, Georgia, LSU, Alabama.
South Carolina. I don't think we have enough data on South Carolina yet.
So in an 8-team tournament with Florida, South Carolina, or Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, LSU, and then Oregon, Stanford, USC, UCLA. I don't. Who's the fourth best team? See, I still think the SEC, even going 4 deep, is still a little bit better.
Bit tighter.
Yeah,
I think it's
interesting.
It's close. It's interesting discussion. Yeah.
It's interesting, but the UCLA drop off between 3 and 4 is rough.
Yeah, I mean, who else would you put?
And I like UCLA.
I like Arizona State, but I want to wait and see more.
We don't know
them.
what. Yeah, they had a really nice game against Illinois. We're not being rapid. All right, next question. This is from our friend, and it says Lindsay Theory. I think there's a pronunciation. It's Lindici Thierry, like Terry Henry. Lindici.
Right. Okay.
I think there was she didn't separate the letters in her name. I don't know what any of that meant. Do you think Washington is back? They were up at the time, 45-0. It was 52-13 or something.
Tough one today against
Portland State.
Yeah,
the Vikings.
Well, good for them on that one.
Yeah.
Portland State, huh?
Washington, after today, may not win another game until November.
They're back in all games that involve Portland State.
Yes.
I think we can say that now confidently.
Against all teams that relate to Jerry Glanville and incorporate Jerry Glanville into their game planning. They're splendid.
I like Washington State. I would have liked them more if they looked better last week against LSU.
Yeah, I agree. Ty, do you need me to send you a prescription for some Valium for tonight's game?
Next question.
Burger or Mexican for dinner for tonight's Notre Dame-Michigan State game? Can't decide.
I went Mexican earlier.
Yeah, well, Mexican-ish. Chipotle.
The problem
not Chipotle.
The problem with Mexican is that if you're in a situation where there are nerves,
that's the thing.
You see what I'm saying? It's in there.
If you're a Michigan State Notre Dame fan,
that could make things worse for you.
You know what it can make it for your body?
I know what it can.
Tire fire.
That could be a potential tire fire nominee.
Right.
The problem with the burger, though, is it might make you drowsy.
Right. I would say thinner burger, maybe a turkey burger, a lighter burger.
A salmon burger.
To go with a nice not fresca.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something nice and lean.
That's so fresca.
Perhaps.
Yeah, nice and lean. I would say turkey burger, but maybe like a turkey chili burger. So you're still getting a little bit of grease.
A little bit of both?
I like that.
Okay.
All right. Over/under on weeks Gene Chizik is gainfully employed. We already discussed this.
Right.
I say he lasts the season. Then
let me ask you this. Let me change that question around. Over/under on how long it takes Gene Chizik, if he so desires, to grow out his sideburns.
You start seeing a losing streak in the SEC season. Maybe he's got to change something up. Facial hair.
Because like some people have beard bets.
Right. I would say by week 10, you're never going to see sideburns from Gene Chizik.
I'd like to see it, though.
That yearbook picture is fantastic of him. That era is bygone.
Yeah, I think
that is bygone. All right, what's your favorite type of cereal?
Ooh. I'll probably go something real basic.
Okay.
Cheerios, Rice Krispies.
Wow, you're boring as crap.
I don't eat that much cereal.
Neither do I. mean, here's what the Quaker Toasted Oat Squares are quite good.
Okay, I can go with
Not
that.
too sweet, just a touch of brown sugar.
Just a touch.
Have you ever had those?
I have, yeah.
They're real good.
They're very good, yeah.
I like the Frosted Mini Wheats.
Ooh.
You're getting the wheat
wow,
crunch.
see, this sort of changes it.
Right, you forgot about it. And I don't believe in any of like the whole brown sugar frosted and the strawberry, like all that crap. Forget about that.
It's all a bunch of marketing people.
Right. So favorite non-sweet cereal, how about that? So that's your Cheerios?
Yeah, that would probably be Cheerios.
But Special K. Ooh. Good Special K is, I was going to say a good Special K is hard to find.
You win the question.
All right.
Go ahead, what's next?
All right, why is it okay for Oklahoma State to do an onside kick up by 5 touchdowns? Because F it, that's why.
Because Mike Gundy's a man in 40.
He's like 45 now, right?
That was a while ago. Yeah.
That was a long, God. We should look at the solid verbal in terms of how old Mike Gundy is, because that's in our initial intro. Can anybody play a close game against Alabama?
Maybe LSU.
I think definitely LSU.
I'm hesitant to say Oregon.
Okay, so nationally, not just on their schedule. Yeah,
I'm hesitant to say Oregon just because of what we saw happen against Auburn.
Right.
You know,
offensive line dealing with injuries now at this point. Can they handle?
I'm hesitant to say Oregon. I don't know. What do you think about USC? Is USC a national championship caliber team with the way it's playing right now?
They can't have anybody else get hurt. Yeah. You see Khaled Holmes dealing with the injury at the center position. He's the one calling out all the calls that Matt Barkley isn't. Looking at the blitzes and picking things up against an SEC. I was going to say against an SEC-style defense. No, it is actually an SEC defense, not Alabama. Yes, USC, just because of how talented they are in both the offensive and defensive backfields, and I'm including the wide receivers in that term, I think that they can play with anybody. They can handle anybody on any given night. But, I mean, here's the old Jesse Palmer. You give Nick Saban 5 weeks to game plan, and I just don't see how, and I don't know why he's, actually Jesse Palmer is Canadian. I felt like that was
He would throw in a coordinator in there, too.
Right. Anytime you give Kirby Smart And Nick Saban, I don't care if it's Monty Kiffin, the Kiffin father-son duo.
That's too good. That is too good.
Yeah. All right, next question. So yes, I think USC and Oregon. Other than that, across the country, there's not a ton. I'd like to see more out of Oklahoma at this point.
I feel like there's only 4 or 5 good teams.
Here's my wild
Florida
card.
State, maybe?
Florida State,
Yeah.
yes, because they should be able to shut down Alabama on offense for a time. Here's what I'm curious about, and we don't know anything about this team at this point, mostly because we actually haven't physically seen them, the Texas Longhorns.
Ooh.
That's a real good defense with a really good running game.
Texas hasn't really played anyone of note.
Right.
So we haven't had
Wyoming
a chance.
and New Mexico on the Longhorn Network.
Them, sure.
And we love you, Andy Wall, but
right.
no. So, I mean, that's a wild card for me at this point.
Yeah. Okay. What else we got?
Next team, speaking of Texas, did Mac Brown steal candy from you when you were a baby? See, that's not funny.
That's not funny.
I just like making fun of Texas. And yes, he stole Special K and Frosted Mini Wheats.
I wish Mac Brown would steal some vertical stripes for his shirts.
Oh, I like that. I think it's funny that you make fun of him because he got a little tubby.
You know, because the vertical stripes, they have that effect. I'm just saying. What else?
All right, I have these questions. Will somebody in the Pac-10, I guess he meant to write Pac-12, he or she, will they get to USC?
Will they get to USC?
Well, will somebody take down USC?
I think Stanford could do it tonight. I think Oregon will do it.
You think Oregon will do it in Los Angeles?
I do. I like Oregon.
I like them a little bit. I'm not super confident at this point. Ready to crown Florida State's ass?
What are we crowning them?
I don't know. ACC champs and potential national championship contender?
Definite national championship contender if they
Right.
keep playing the way that they've played over the first 3 weeks. But it's only 3 weeks. Florida State has come unhinged quickly in the past. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened again.
Right.
It wouldn't surprise me. So I'm not ready to crown Florida State.
Oh, E.J. Manuel, how you are
He
so
could still get hurt,
predictable.
right?
He will be hurt. I mean, we know, and we don't want him to get hurt, mind you.
Of course.
Stay healthy, Mr. Manuel, but
Please.
he's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
How bad is Navy? I don't think they're as bad. They played two. I mean, Penn State's not that good.
They've lost on 2 continents.
They've lost on two.
So they're at least that bad.
Right.
Penn State is...
People pay 2 different forms of money to get into their games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Navy's not going to compete. Navy's not going to compete with a Notre Dame. Navy couldn't even compete with Penn State.
Right.
Navy will win a few games because of their scheme, because it takes people a while to game prep for them.
Right.
So I don't want to throw Navy under the bus. I like the middies.
Final question.
Okay.
Do you miss your friends on the bus? Because you drove in today.
I did drive in today. You know, you would not believe the kinds of things that you see on the bus from Allentown up here to New York.
Right.
You know, people trying to sneak live animals on. I saw a woman who was arguing on the phone about some sort of legal matter. A couple drunk people. I mean, the bus from Allentown up here to Midtown Manhattan is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
I do miss them, yes.
So you do. What did you listen to on the drive here?
Listen to College Game Day, actually.
You listened to college. How did you do that?
Listening on XM radio, Sirius XM, not Sirius XM radio.
Not Sirius XM radio. Is that all the stuff we want to hit for the night?
I guess it is. I guess people could still reach out to us on the Twitter, again, at Solid
of course
Verbal.
they should.
If you want to tweet us throughout the course of the evening's games.
Right.
Also, 206-338-1784.
14-10 Tennessee, by the way.
14-10. Okay. We'll keep tabs on that one. Do stay tuned to our Twitter. Call us at the number I just mentioned. My name's Ty. That guy over there is Dan. Thanks again for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your night. By all means, enjoy the rest of your weekend and stay solid.
Peace.